and also the live session. Yeah, so they have started recording, I guess. Uh, yeah, but then I'm unable to see myself in the camera, and it seems it's not yet open. So let's hope the people from the computer center will be opening camera very soon. Uh, so without further ado, I'm sorry for all the glitches and uh, making you wait for this live session, and my sincere apology to each and everyone. There is always a technical glitches in this era of uh, computer sciences and artificial intelligence, and it cannot replace the physical classroom and physical interaction. But nevertheless, we are in the part of this massive online open course, and our endeavor must not stop uh, in achieving our goal uh, of this online courses and reaching out to those people who cannot have access to education. What I mean by that is access to uh, costly education. And in that endeavor, whatever difficulties we might be facing, uh, our endeavor should keep on going. So, hello everyone. I am Parvez Alam. Uh, at the Department of Political Science, I teach political theory, human rights, and I'm offering this course, Nationalism and Constitutional Growth in India, 1858 to 1920. Uh, and we are here in the live session today. Uh, so good afternoon, everyone. I welcome you all to this live session for our MOOC course on nationalism and constitutional growth in India, 1858-1920. It's wonderful to see such a diverse and engaged group of learners from different backgrounds coming together to explore this fascinating and transformative period in Indian history. It has been 2 months since we embarked on this academic journey together, and by now you must have delved into the foundational aspects of the course, engaged with the readings, and completed some of the exercises designed to deepen your understanding. I hope you are finding the course content simulating and the learning experience enriching. Now, today's session is an opportunity for you to clarify any doubts or queries you may have regarding the topics we have covered so far, from the early phases of Indian nationalism, the role of constitutional reforms, to the socio-political movements that set the stage for India's eventual freedom struggle. Friends, we will also discuss today how the knowledge gained from this course can be applied in your academic and professional pursuits. Feel free to ask any questions, no matter how basic or complex they may seem. Remember, this is a space for open dialogue and learning. Your curiosity and engagement are what make these sessions meaningful and productive. So without further ado, let's get started. I'm looking forward to an engaging and insightful discussion. As you are aware, uh, we started from the lecture one, which was about the arrival of colonial powers in India. Before discussing the arrival of colonial powers in India, for colonial purposes, we tried to understand that what we mean by colonialism. Now, colonialism simply means that external powers attempt to capture the native population for political control and economic extraction. We studied as we progressed, uh, we tried to understand the larger context of the British Empire and the significant events such as the revolt of 1857, also known as First War of Independence or the Sepoy Mutiny. Friends, we tried to understand in week two by examining some socio-religious reform movements and the rise of national awakening. We explored how the nationalist spirit and social issues were pursued as challenges that subjugated India due to the advent of modernity and scientific temper. Socio-religious reformers began to question illogical, irrational customs and traditions, especially those what were anti-women or discriminatory towards other communities. So in that week, we covered the end of the East India Company in 1858. And friends, we also embarked in understanding in week three about the Indian Councils Act of 1861 and 1892, their basic provisions, and the Aligarh movement started by Sir Syed Ahmad Khan, including its causes, objectives, and impacts. In week four, we studied by delving into the beginning of the freedom struggle and the consolidation of nationalist spirit through the Indian National Congress. We discussed the factors and causes behind the establishment of the Indian national movement, and also tried to understand the objectives of the Indian National Congress. Also, we addressed the questions raised by moderates and extremists by studying their phases within the Congress and the ideological divisions that emerged. And then we looked into partition of Bengal and the subsequent formation of All India Muslim League, as well as its role in Indian politics. Hence, we focused on constitutional development and political mobilization, including the parliamentary reforms, their provisions and significance. And then we covered the Lucknow Pact, in that week 8. And then we tried to understand Montego-Chelmsford reforms, and by discussing their importance in the context of nationalism and constitutional growth, each event contributed to the development of a national consciousness and a sense of unity. And then we tried to understand the non-cooperation and Khilafat movement, where significant movements in the Indian freedom struggle, and also examined their impact, particularly how the 1905-1906 movements divided people along religious lines. And we explored the rise of cultural nationalism in the end, and also we tried to understand that how Indian National Congress, in a way, gradually win over the British Raj by constitutionally consolidating in the first part of this course till 1920. Now, let us try to understand that how, it is very important to understand by understanding that how Europeans came in India and transformed the Indian socio-cultural setting in very significant ways. India has always been a destination for various societies for trade and commerce. It was also a center for learning, particularly for Hinduism and Buddhism. Many people from around the world came to India to learn about different cultures. However, commerce and trade eventually led to the migration of different communities to India. Indians, in turn, also migrated and learned from other cultures. If we consider what Peter the Great said about controlling India, we see that in the 15th and 16th centuries, due to the Renaissance, modernity, and the Industrial Revolution, European countries were undergoing a phase of industrialization and needed raw materials. They were looking for markets to sell their products, which led them to seek opportunities abroad to extract resources. Some argue that colonialism indeed is a consequential, of the commercialization or industrialization, where large industries sought to capture land and resources, leading to political control and colonial rule. Friends, as you all have been trying to understand through those video lectures, nearly 60 video lectures, which are uploaded on YouTube and also on the Swayam platform. Uh, I have been talking about the historical background of the Indian national movement, and particularly the very initial phases of the British exploitation. Now, remember that what Peter the Great stated, that bear in mind that the commerce of India is the commerce of the world. This reflects his understanding that controlling Indian commerce meant controlling a significant portion of global trade. The political geography of India during the Mughal period was vast. Unlike today's India, in 1947 at independence, India was partitioned due to various reasons. And I have shown from a map of 1707, which depicts the continental size of the Mughal Empire, including regions such as Pakistan, Afghanistan, and parts of Bangladesh and Myanmar. This vast landmass, with its historical linkages, was a major target for European powers seeking control through trade, commerce, or force. Before we delve into historical timelines and facts, we also considered some of the approaches to understand modern Indian history. One approach is the colonial approach, which is influenced by the ideology of domination. It focuses on criticizing indigenous society and culture while praising Western culture. Another approach we studied was the Orientalist approach, which portrays colonies negatively to assert Western superiority and justify the so-called civilizing mission. And then we tried to understand nationalist approach, which emerged as a response to the colonial and Orientalist approaches. It, emphasized India's cultural heritage and counters colonial narratives. By highlighting the positive aspects of ancient and medieval periods. Historians like R.C. Majumdar and Tarachand popularized this approach, and then we understood what is called Marxist approach, which focused on the contradictions between the interests of colonial masters and native subjects. It explores the collaboration of the elite class with colonial rulers, which helped maintain colonial dominance. Historians like Rajni Papdat and A.R. Desai have written from this perspective. Now, the last approach, which is very significant, particularly in the late 1960s, people like Ranajit Guha and also Gayatri Chakravarti Spivak, they came from the subaltern approach, which highlights the contributions of common people to history and emphasizes the importance of oral history and folklore in understanding the experience of the masses. Friends, from these approaches, we also incorporated what is called communalist approach, which actually sees Hindu-Muslim relations as inherently antagonistic. Historians use this approach particularly by analyzing Indian history through binary oppositions, which can sometimes oversimplify the complex dynamics of the subcontinent. Now, there are various historians, like Cambridge historians, who argue that Indian nationalism was, in a way, a product of conflicts among the Indians themselves who were benefiting from the British rulers. And this, in a way, justifies some of the components of the activities of British Raj. Now, this perspective creates an image of nationalism as a deliberate attempt to gain benefits from the British rulers. They portray nationalist leaders as being driven more by greed for power and material benefits than by an honest commitment to the cause of freedom. This perspective is characteristic of the Cambridge school. So, liberal and neoliberal interpretation, on the other hand, suggests that the economic exploitation of the colonies did not benefit the people of Britain, a claim that has been contested even in contemporary times. People like Shashi Tharoor and others have argued that the extraction of wealth from India, as described by Dadabhai Naoroji in his concept of the brain of wealth, benefited British industries such as those in Manchester and Lancashire. Naoroji used metaphors like sucking the moisture from India and raining it in London to describe how the wealth extracted from India helped British factories thrive. Liberal and neoliberal interpretations counter this by arguing that Britain did not gain from this exploitation. Now, we have another kind of historiography called feminist historiography, which provides another intervention focusing on how colonial structures, such as the legal system, impacted women's lives. It also highlights the contribution of women freedom fighters or Viranganas in the struggle for independence. Feminist historiography attempts to reframe history by placing women at the center of the discussion. It also addresses issues like women's vulnerability due to the denial of ownership of productive resources such as land and other property. So after examining these approaches, we can now, revisit how various European powers started with the Portuguese, then the Dutch, Danish, French, and finally the British engaged in both conflict and collaboration to control India. They competed to benefit from India's resources, leading to wars and skirmishes, as well as temporary alliances. Ultimately, the British emerged as the dominant power, taking over the territories and influence previously held by other European powers. Now, there are certain personalities and figures, and I'm sure that you all have already, listened to some of the, some of the video lectures, and you are very familiar with these names, which I'm talking about, such as Francisco de Almeida, the Portuguese governor, who stated that as long as you are powerful at sea, India will be yours. And if you lose this power, little will the fortresses on shore avail you. This seems very poetic, which emphasizes the importance of naval power in the 15th and 16th centuries for controlling geopolitics and establishing global dominance. Control over the seas meant control over various lands. The British Navy's strength is often highlighted with the phrase, the sun never set on the British Empire. The question of why a sea route to India, uh, you know, was sought is essential. The Renaissance spirit in the 15th century Europe drove countries to seek opportunities to prosper and improve their quality of life, creating a demand for luxury goods, including spices for preserving meat. India, known as the land of spices, became a primary destination. Events like the capture of Constantinople in 1453 and Syria and Egypt by the Ottoman Turks necessitated finding a new route to India by passing the Arabs and Turks. Port cities like Venice and Genoa in Italy were too small to resist the Turks, prompting Spain and Portugal to secure their naval pathways and safeguard their port cities. The Portuguese were pioneers in exploring these routes, with Vasco da Gama discovering the sea route to India in 1498 and establishing trading stations at Calicut, Kochi, and Canano. Subsequent governors like Francisco de Almeida and Alfonso de Albuquerque consolidated Portuguese power in India, capturing territories and implementing policies such as the Blue Water Policy and Cartas system. Albuquerque, known as the founder of Portuguese power in India, captured Goa and Patkal and initiated reforms such as the banning and practices of sati, right? And which later on you all know that in the socio-religious reform movements, when we were talking about Brahma Samaj, which actually led the initiative of legal reforms, through William Bentinck, led by Raja Ram Mohan Roy. So the Portuguese declined gradually, and there was the emergence of powerful dynasties elsewhere, like Egypt, Persia, and North India, as well as the Marathas. Political issues like the activities of Jesuit missionaries and the rise of English and Dutch commercial ambitions challenged Portuguese supremacy. A rapid corruption and a shift in colonizing ambition from India to Brazil also contributed to their decline. The Dutch, under the United States India Company, established numerous factories in India, such as those in Masulipatanam, Polikat, Surat, and Kochi. However, their rivalry with the British East India Company led to their shift in focus to the Malay archipelago and Indonesia. The English ultimately defeated the Dutch in the Battle of Bedara in 1759. The French, under the leadership of Colbert and others, established settlements in Pondicherry and Masulipatanam. The Anglo-French rivalry, which coincided with wars in Europe, led to the Carnatic Wars in India, and the first Carnatic War ended with the Treaty of Aix-la-Chapelle in 1748. The Second Carnatic War undermined French power in South India. The Third Carnatic War, particularly the Battle of Bandiwash, was decisive and resulted in the Treaty of Paris, limiting French influence in India. The English East India Company, formed on 31st December 1600 by a charter from Queen Elizabeth I, began establishing uh, settlements in Surat, Agra, Ahmedabad, and Bombay, gradually expanding their influence over the Indian subcontinent. Now, major cities like Bombay, Madras, and Calcutta became centers of British power. The Mughal Emperor Farrukh Shiah's Farman in 1717 granted the company significant privileges in Bengal, Gujarat, and Hyderabad, paving the way for the company's dominance in India. The British Empire was not limited to the Indian subcontinent. It spanned 25% of the Earth's landmass, leading to the famous saying, the empire on which the sun never sets. So, from the 18th to the 20th century, Britain was a formidable global power. India was a major source of revenue for the British, who extracted wealth and resources to benefit their home country. Colonialism in India was not a benign endeavor. It led to the exploitation and marginalization of the native population. The British uh, East India Company and later the British Crown implemented policies that severely impacted the socio-economic and political fabric of India. This was not unique to Indian colonialism in India. In fact, colonialism universally led to the subjugation and exploitation of indigenous population. So, in India, colonial policies resulted in widespread poverty, starvation, cultural instability, economic exploitation, political marginalization, and social inferiority. Despite the British narrative of a civilizing mission, colonialism was fundamentally about domination and resource extraction. The impact on Indian society was profound, disrupting a previously harmonious and diverse social fabric. So, uh, British colonial rule introduced changes such as free market capitalism and Western style education. While these changes created a class of educated Indians who became part of the colonial administration, they also perpetuated British dominance by co-opting native elites into the imperial framework. Additionally, the introduction of free market capitalism did not benefit the Indian population at large, but primarily served British economic interests. So, the decline of the Mughal Empire created a vacuum that the British East India Company exploited to establish control. Weak Mughal successes, internal conflicts, and external invasions contributed to this decline. In contrast, the British had superior military technology, efficient administration, and strong leadership, which enabled them to consolidate power. Friends, as we have just got to know that how powerful uh, British Empire became in India by defeating all those rivals and also eliminating the enemies like Marathas and Mughals, and then ultimately expanding its influence all over India through East India Company, and then gradually fighting various battles like Battle of Plassey in 1757, which marked the beginning of British political control in India, and gradual decline of Mughal Empire, also weakened regional powers, which facilitated British consolidation. So British gradually extended their control over the subcontinent through military its expansion and the conquest and the strategic alliances and administrative reforms. By 1858, which is our the timeline from where we see constitutional consolidation, this is the 1858 is basically the year when the British Crown actually took direct control of India, which marked the beginning of the British Raj. So, by 1857, we see a great rebellion, which is, I said, that is a sepoy mutiny. And further on, when the rebellion was crushed by the British, military, the British Crown then took over the control. The subsequent period actually saw a series of reforms aimed at consolidating British rule while placating Indian demands for political representation. So key legislative acts like the Government of India Act of 1858, the Indian Councils Act of 1892, and the Montego-Chelmsford reforms of 1919 laid the groundwork for limited self-governance, which would eventually culminate in India's independence in 1947. So, friends, is having the background of this, we have had, uh, discussion uh, from the arrival of colonial powers in India to the revolt of 1857. And then we also, in a way, discussed, various issues which are part of equally, some of the events which unfolded through the constitutional consolidation. So, for an example, socio-religious reform movements, which were very important, which discusses reform movements led by figures like Raja Ram Mohan Roy, Swami Dayanand Saraswati, by focusing on social and religious reforms. Also, Acts of 1858 and 1861 are of importance, which we explored by understanding the provisions in Government of India Act 1858 and also Indian Councils Act 1861 that marked shifts in British governance in India. Then, friends, it was important, to also talk about Aligarh movement and other educational reforms. 1892 Indian Councils Act actually introduced limited representation for Indians in governance, and then Aligarh movement highlighted, Sir Syed Ahmad Khan's contribution to education reform and socio-political awakening among Indian Muslims. And this is also a time of beginning of the awakening, national awakening, where Indian National Congress is formed and which is leading the what is called Swadeshi movement, where Indian National Congress you know is fighting for press freedom and also critiquing the economic colonial policies. Uh, then, chronologically, we saw the extremism within the International Congress, the partition of Bengal, and internationalization of Congress's activities, which led to parliamentary reforms in 1905 and various political reforms uh, initiated by parliamentary reforms. And then also the activities by Muslim League and Home Rule we have discussed by the issues of self-governance, so on and so forth, and also uh, there's a moment in Indian history which is where the Gandhi is arriving at the national scene, and Gandhi's activities, against the Rowlatt Act, as well as also critiquing the dominance of the British Raj through his own pacifist methods, is attracting basically masses into the freedom movement. Also, it is of utmost importance to understand and also know some of the events which was the blot on the British history, where Britishers, in a way, led to various kinds of violent, massacres, like Jallianwala Bagh massacre, which was a tragic event in the backdrop of the Rowlatt Act and the protests which people were taking up, which actually shook the national psyche. And Khilafat and non-cooperation movement was another Gandhi's initiative against British rule. And we focused individually in those video lectures on, leaders like Bal Gangadhar Tilak, Lala Lajpat Rai, Dadabhai Nauroji, Gopal Krishna Gokhale, Jyotiba Phule. These are the leaders. Without talking about their contributions, we would not be able to understand the social and political setting against which they were trying to, address these very important questions and reforming the, society, and which is leading to people contributing, immensely in the freedom struggle. Then later on, we emphasized on a very, very important question of nation and nationalism. And one of the USP of this course, Nationalism and Constitutional Growth, uh, is that we dedicated some of the lectures on theoretical and deep readings of interpretation of nationalism by talking about various theorists who have interpreted the concept of nation and nationalism, and and this is something that it is never talked about in the courses, uh, which actually talk about constitutionalism, or constitutional consolidation, or constitutional growth in India. So in a way, uh, it is very important to understand the present through understanding the past. And one of the driving force of the 20th century, the driving idea or ideology, was the nationalism. And without understanding nationalism, we will not be able to understand, the contemporary times. And for that, we need to understand theories of nationalism and the nationalist ideas, it is also very important to understand the alternative ideas of nationalism, from Gandhian ideas to Tagorean idea to composite nationalism idea given by Hussain Ahmad Madani and Maulana Azad, and also the cultural nationalism, which talks about cultural identity in the nationalist discourse, uh, which emphasizes the intersection of culture and nationalism, where the variants of Hindu nationalism, which populates our discourses in our times, is very important. And then alternative, ideas of the nations and social justice led by Baba Sahib Ambedkar, decent movements and working class movements, which examines the role of decent uprisings like the Bardoli, Heda, and others. We discuss in those video lectures, in the last week of those lectures. So, uh, friends, in the end, if you have any query or question, please let me know. We'll be able to understand and sort of try to address some of the questions through discursive method. Uh, uh, is there any question from the participants? Okay, so no questions. So in the last, I would say that this course provides a comprehensive understanding of the complex interplay between nationalism, reform, and constitutional development in India. So I close here, this live session. This is Parvez Alam, uh, the instructor of the course Nationalism and Constitutional Growth in India, 1858 to 1920. Thank you so much for enrolling yourself in this course and having a very joyous learning. I hope if there will be any kind of query question, we have a Google group. You can just pose question to me by addressing questions to me, and I'll be happily uh, answering your questions. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir.
Hello.
Hello, thank you.
Can you just let me know that when I can come and then take the recording?
Recording. You can
Yeah.
come at any time.
Okay.
After
Okay.
3, after 3.
After 3.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much. I'll come back to you then. Yeah. Thank you.